Hi, I'm Amina Wasuma, and I'm here to tell you about my novel, Amber Stone, Agent Zero, Episode 18, I Have to Save Imani. Now, the last time we left off, Imani was in prison and Heleema was consoling her. So, all of a sudden, her water breaks and she goes into labor pains. So, Heleema doesn't know what to do. She's calling the guard. The guard comes and he's laughing, you know. And she says, my sister's having a baby, you know. Is there a doctor or a nurse around? And he says, no, no doctor, no nurse. You're going to have to do this one yourself. So she said, well, go get me some water. So he goes and gets the water, and he's grinning from ear to ear. And he lets her in the cell, and she rushes in, and she tries to give Imani some water, and she doesn't want it. And what happens is she escorts her to the cot, lays her down, and she's like, I don't know how to deliver a baby. And, I have no idea. So Imani, pulls her pants down, and, so Heleema helps her, and she opens her legs and she pushes, and the baby comes out. It has the umbilical cord around its neck, so it's stillborn. And Heleema says, it's a boy, but he's not breathing. He's dead. So Imani's like, oh, maybe it's better off. He won't have to live with shame of not having a father. He won't be subjected to adoption. He is at peace. So Heleema takes the blanket and wraps the baby, in the blanket, and puts it on the cot, beside Imani. And all of a sudden, the cell is bombed. The NOO is bombing the palace. And so Heleema says, come on, let's go. We got to get out of here. And so she helps Imani up off of the cot. And Imani's like, wait, my baby, let's bury him. And they go toward the cot to grab the baby's body, and the wall crumbles in on it. And so Heleema says, well, we can't do anything now. He's buried under the rocks. And so she says, come on, hold on to me, because she can barely walk. And she helps her out of the cell. They make their way to the surface. And now on the surface, in the city of Baghdad, everybody is running frantically, trying to get out of the city. The bombs are falling from the sky, and the people are just running. So Heleema's like, we can't run, so we're going to have to find a car. So she spots a car with some keys in it. And she says, so Imani says to her, well, if we get caught, we're going to get our fingers chopped off. She says, well, that's the only thing, we can do. You can't run or walk, so we're going to have to steal it because we got to get out of here. If we stay here, the bombs are coming down, and we may get hit. So they get into the car, and Heleema drives. And it's nightfall now. And she's got the lights on, and she's driving. And she decides, well, I'm going to cut the lights off, and we're just going to sit in the desert until the planes, pass over us. Because as we're driving, they can see the lights, and they may target us. So she stops the car. She looks into the compartment, and she sees a 32 pistol and a flashlight. So she closes it, and she's sitting there, and all of a sudden, she's snatched out of the car by two sex traffickers. And they start beating her. They're two men, they're in black, and they start beating her and slapping her back and forth between them. And she starts fighting. And Heleema fights, she fights. She fights the best way she knows how. And Emani grabs the 32 pistol out of the glove compartment and crawls out of the car, barely pulls herself up on the hood. And Heleema sees her and says, Emani. So the two men look at Emani, and they don't pay her any attention. They are still slapping Heleema back and forth. One of them takes out a belt, and they whip her with the belt, and she's just fighting them, And she says, Emani, take the shot. And so Emani got the pistol now, and she's pointing it, and she's never used a pistol before. So she's hoping, oh my God, if I pull the trigger, I don't want to hit Heleema. And she finally pulls the trigger, and she hits the first man, and then she pulls the trigger again, and she hits the second man. They both fall to the ground. Now, Heleema doesn't know if they're dead or alive. She doesn't check. She just runs towards the car, helps Emani in the car, jumps in, and drives off. So Emani said, where are we going? So we're going home. And so Emani says, oh, I've never killed anybody before. What if they're dead? And Heleema says, well, what if they're not? They're going to come after us, Who knows? And so Emani's kind of like changed. That moment, well, the baby being born dead really didn't change it because she didn't have time to grieve on it because they had to get out of the cell really quick. But killing the two men changed her personality. For some reason, she didn't fear anymore. She became more like her mother, Adara. Calm, not worried. It's just, something just changed in her, And so her and Heleema drive to the house. She takes Emani inside, gives her a cold shower, changes her clothes, gives her a pad, puts her in the bed. And she tells her, I'm going to fix you some tea. So Emani has the gun under the pillow. Footsteps. She hears footsteps coming into the house, like a man's footsteps walking. And he goes into the kitchen. She's got the gun waiting. And it's her bed. And Heleema's like, you scared me. And he says, what happened? He said, Rashid's palace was bombed. And we escaped. And he says, Emani, he says, she's in the room. I'm fixing her some tea. She had the baby, and the baby was born dead. And Rashid is Habib is so tired. He sits down, and he says, I want to talk to her. And Heleema says, no, forgive her. She's been through enough, He says, well, I'm going to give her 3 days, and she's going to have to come out and set IEDs. She's not going to be able to rest any longer than that. So Heleema said, I have to save Emani. And you need to forgive her father. And he's kind of bitter, you know. He's like, I need you girls to carry on. It's up to you to carry on the daughters of Allah. Because you're young and you're the new generation. And she says, what happened to Rashid? So the soldiers killed him. You know, he was trying to escape and they caught him and shot him. And Heleema was like, good. I'm so glad that happened. He said, I don't think it's funny. That was my best friend, and, you know, you're going to have to carry on, you know, not let the NOO destroy our culture or our religion. And Heleema said, well, I can't do it without Emani. He says, well, 3 days. And then she comes back out in the field. And he's so tired, he lays his head down on the table and falls asleep. So the next morning, she brings breakfast in to Emani. And Habib got up early and left. And so Imani's like, well, he got up, he didn't say anything to me. So Heleema said, well, he'll come around. She says, well, I don't think he's going to forgive me. So Heleema said, give him some time. You know, he'll forgive you, but he wants you to be ready to work on the IEDs in 3 days' time. And so Imani's like, okay, I'm going to rest. So he won't have any, you know, excuse to scold me. So in the desert, Habib is planting an IED in a goat carcass, and it explodes and kills him. So back at the house, Heleema has fixed the dinner and everything. It's all on the table, and she's waiting for Habib to come, and Habib doesn't show. And so Imani's sitting at the table too. They eat their dinner, and his food is sitting there, so she covers it. So, well, maybe he'll come in later, you know. But we need to go to bed so we can get up early in the morning and go out because, you know, he wants us to go out and set IEDs. So they go to bed, and when they wake up in the morning, the dish is still on the table. It's covered, you know, but it's still on the table. So Heleema realizes that Habib hasn't come home. And she's like, well, he didn't come home. So let's go out and find him. And they go out in the desert, and they find his body, and he's dead. And the two girls put his body in the Jeep, drive it back home, and do a funeral. You know, wrap his body in cloth and sheets. But first they wash him down and everything because they don't have anybody there to do that. And usually men do it on other men, but there's nobody in town to do it, so they have to do it. And they bury him. And Heleema says, I have to go into town to get supplies because we can't stay here for long. The Americans, the NOO will find us, or Rashid's men will find us sooner or later. So she goes into town. What's on her mind is, I got to get supplies and get back to Emani, because I don't want to leave her alone for too long. And when she goes in, snipers fire at her. She has to go into an old grocery store that's been, you know, shot up. The gate is torn. And she goes in and she gets all the supplies that she needs. And she's dodging bullets. She gets out of there by the skin of her teeth. She's grazed, a bullet grazes her ear, but she doesn't have time to, you know, fix it. So she gets out and she has the sack of food for her and Emani. And she goes back and said, "We have to leave." So Emani said, "Yeah?" Said, "Yeah, we have to leave." So, well, you know, they're going to be looking for us. She didn't tell Emani that snipers were after her because she didn't want Emani to get upset. So she pretended like, you know, everything was okay. And her ear was bleeding a little bit, but she didn't say, "Oh, you know, a bullet grazed my ear," but that was about it, and I got away. So Imani has a picture of Habib and Adara. She found it, and she looked at it and said, "I found this." And she also found Habib's diary. And she said, "I found this." And it said, "Take it to Muhammad Akbar if anything should happen to me." So the girls dye their hair blonde. So because the soldiers are looking for two girls, two brunettes with long hair. So they cut all their hair off and dye it blonde. And they put the hijabs back on. And the next morning, they leave to go to Libya. Now, they don't know who Muhammad Akbar is. They're just going to take the diary to him because that's what Habib wanted. And so they're thinking, "Oh my God, is he like Rashid? Is he going to rape us, you know, once we meet him?" And Imani's like, "Well, Rhodesia is in Libya. Maybe he can take us to where she is because she has the money and the wealth, and, you know, we could be safe if we go and stay with her." So Heleema said, "Okay, all right." So they get in the truck, and Heleema drives, leaving Iraq behind. She drives. Now, what's going to happen from Iraq to Libya? Are they going to get to Libya safe? Once they get there and they meet Muhammad Akbar, is he like Rashid? You know, is he going to abuse them? Or is he going to help them? So tune in for episode 19, The Libyan Gathering.